I'm so excited that we have Innovate Digital Solutions as a sponsor of heCast this season. Innovate Digital Solutions provides anything that an office might need: hardware, software, IT, copy machines, things like that. They make an office run more smooth, and they're really good at it. But one of the things that I love about Innovate, their founders, Andre and Katia Brasso, they're people that don't just believe it's important to build a strong business, but also to take that success and build a strong community around them. They really have a heart for what heChanged It is doing. People they love have gone through some of the stuff that we talk about on this show. Andre and Katia both believe that you can build a life worth living, and there are these evidence-based solutions that can help build that life. We're so excited to be in partnership with Innovate Digital Solutions, and heChanged It is better for it, and we hope you will be too. Go to innovate.ca and check them out.
Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of heChanged It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I'm extra excited for this episode. Mike, you say that every time. You're always extra excited about. No, well, this one here, Kyle Robinson got to me. I'm shooting this intro after the episode. This is one of the best episodes of any podcast I've ever been a part of. It was a phenomenal conversation. His story is fantastic. He's got a book out, Wandering Spark. It's about his life, and it starts with an abusive stepfather, and it ends with him becoming a lawyer of some pretty high esteem, and an entrepreneur, and some other amazing things. It's a very powerful story, and it's a very powerful episode dissecting it. Kyle Robinson's a special guy, and this is a really, really special story. So go to heChanged.com, check out the app. It's growing, lots of great stuff happening in the background, blah, blah, blah. It's true. But today, heCast, the official podcast of heChanged It, is very, very proud to present our interview with Kyle Robinson, author of Wandering Spark. Enjoy. Kyle, I am so excited that you have taken time out of your schedule to be on heCast today. You know, here's the thing. When somebody writes a book about their story and then they go to promote their book, my wife and I wrote a book a few years ago, and we did some promotional stuff. And it's so funny because, you wrote a book that tells your story, and then you go and you talk to people about your book, and all you do is you tell your story. How many times have you told your story throughout the last few years?
A bunch. And, it's funny. I've done a bunch of podcasts that are, coming out. And when I first started doing it, I thought, it'd be easy to tell my story because I wrote the book. But my first podcast, I kind of stumbled over it, and I didn't realize you actually have to talking about your story and writing your story are two different things. And so I found that out the hard way. My first recording when I was doing a recording a while back. And so I had to really work on, telling the story as opposed to writing the story. And obviously the writing story, you're going through a lot more detail and things like that. And we don't have prompts in the book, but I have a prompt with the podcast. So it's very different. Then also, talking about your story via podcasts and interviews, it's a lot scarier because I feel like when I was writing the book, I didn't really get to see people's reactions in real time, and I wasn't saying it out loud. And so this is a little more, not scary, but it seems a little more real to me as opposed to the book. I'm not seeing people that are reading it or reacting to it and things like that. So I think it's a little different. So that's why I feel that.
I could see that, but it's funny. You kind of wade your way through that, the first little bit of promotion and whatnot, and then it's just kind of like the dirt road, right? The divots show up for the tires to roll over, and you go through the same sorts of things. I hope that this is one of those times where we can go down some different paths with you and talk about this. When was Wandering Spark released? How long ago?
April 1st, the beginning of April it was.
Okay, 2024. So we're 6 weeks ish into the release of this first book that you've ever written.
Well, I wrote it actually 6 years ago, and then I unpublished it and just rewrote it again just because I wanted to focus on some other things, write it better. So this is technically my first book. second revision of it. So yes.
Yeah. When we wrote our book, our editor, she said, you will never stop editing. If there's a point where you have to stop. And I think you can probably relate to that.
Right. It'll never, I still want to make changes till this day, but you can't. You got to put it out there. You got to put it out to the world.
I don't know if we're necessarily burying the lead, but did you make any major revisions before we get into the topic of everything? And I can't wait to kind of get into this and give you the opportunity to tell your story here. But were there any major revisions between the draft 6 years ago and the draft that was just released?
Nothing major, just some family things that I talk about at the end, because I talk about a lot of things that I went through, and I actually disclose some things to my mom, and I didn't have that in the first book, and I talk about this in the second book. And so Gotcha. I thought it was actually pretty important. We can get into that now, but I just talk about I was raised by an abusive stepfather, and I never confronted my mom about that, and I actually did confront her about this, and then I put talking about that in the book. And so I didn't have that in the first book.
That's a major piece. And I'm glad we went down this path and you made that distinction. When I read the synopsis and started learning about your story, I felt a little PTSD, not from me, but because of my father. And my father's actually been on heCast 3 times. And one of the things that he talked about, my dad was raised in many respects, especially when you compare it through today's lens, in horror. And basically by the time he was 14, 15 years old, he's out of the house living as a man does, having to literally be that guy because of the upbringing that he was escaping. And the stepfather was a huge catalyst in that. And as I read through what you've gone through, I really, because my dad's journey, I mean, he's in his 70s now, and we went through that the first time he was on heCast, and he talked about it. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. The fact that you talked to your mom about it, I'm fascinated to know the reaction and whatnot, but we're getting way ahead of things here. Sure. At what point in your life did you have this realization that the environment that you were raised in, this situation that you had to deal with when you were, in many respects helpless? You were a child. At what point in your life did you get to the point where it was like, you know what, I need to deal with this? That's
actually a great question. You'll actually be surprised, because growing up, and I thought all men were like this. As a kid, this is your life. I thought all men were just complete jerks, complete assholes. And I just thought, oh, this is normal. All adult men are like this. And I didn't realize until later on, when I had good role models, good mentors, that they weren't all like that. But I didn't realize how bad I had it. And I'm not trying to say I'm a victim or anything like that.
No.
But I didn't realize what it was like or how bad it was until actually I started writing this story. And so I wanted to write a story about my life because I overcame a lot of challenges, and I was never even going to write about the abuse that happened to me, anything like that. It wasn't until I put it down on this page, I was writing about growing up. And then I started telling stories about what my stepfather did. And I was like, oh my God, it was at that realization that I knew something wasn't right. Something happened when we were kids, and I just really started going through all of that. And I started putting it all in the book, and I was like, oh my God, my stepfather was a very abusive person, and he took it out on me, my brother, and my sister. And it wasn't until that moment and writing in the story that I realized what had happened. And then that's when I realized, oh, I want to turn this into something good, and I want to heal and just go from there.
That's fascinating. Really That's fascinating. So what, I guess if you could put yourself back in the guy that was putting pen to paper or fingers to keystrokes, whatever you want to call it, what was the original idea of the book and the arc of it? And clearly it changed significantly.
Sure. So the original, I wrote a lot about, I'm a big ultra runner and trail runner. So I was writing about my adventures in trail running. And then I wanted to get from where I was at today with trail running. I had to start growing up. So I started writing about how I was raised and stuff. And that's when it kind of came to fruition. And so I was just kind of put that all in there. And I was like, whoa, this is a way different story than what I thought I was going to write about. And that's how it all came to be.
At what point writing through the book did you realize, oh, this is therapy?
Very early on in the process. Yeah. So,
Oh, that's amazing. Let's talk about your running for a second before we get to the book here for a minute. Your ultra marathons, like the big guys.
oh yeah, I've done 100-miler, a bunch of 50Ks. I don't know if I'm going to do another 100-miler, but I do about, 350Ks a year, so a couple of marathons here and there. But yeah, it's more like a mental and social thing. I have really good friends that I wake up with, every morning. We meet up very early in the morning, go run almost every day. So I just really like getting out on the trails and running.
That is unbelievably inspirational to me. People who can do what you do, and the Cam Haineses of the world, the David Goggins of the world, people like that who do these amazing physical feats are just astounding to me. In your opinion, can anybody do that?
Yes, my opinion is anybody can do it for sure. It's all about it's all mental. Like majority, and I know it's easy for me to say that, but it all is very mental. Because if you set your mind to run 100 miles, like if there's no other option, you're going to get it done. And, an ultra marathon, you can walk, you can crawl, you can run. No other option, you can get it done. So I firmly believe it's 100% mental. And so, yes, I believe anybody could do it. You can do it, Mike. You got to get out there.
Oh my gosh. I see. This is where, when you said, believe me, it's 100% mental. I'm like, oh dude, I believe you. I full on believe you. It's when I start running, within like half of a kilometer, I'm already like, my mind is already, and I know what it's like to push through and to get where you start to feel the endorphins come down. Like I know that feeling. But what we're talking about, and if someone said to me, "Hey, we're gonna run a 5K in 2 months," I'd be like, "Yeah, solid, let's do it." Okay, no problem. I can wrap my head around that. I cannot wrap my head around 26 miles. I can't wrap my head around double that. It does not even surprise me a little bit that it's mental. So let me ask you this, because I know a lot of long distance runners who will say this, that is their therapy. Did you start running because of a coping mechanism of the past? Is that something that there's a connection there?
Subconsciously, I think I was just trying to run away from my problems, and it was good to get out in nature and run. But the way it started for me, I started running with my sister and one of my mentors, and I signed up for the New York City Marathon with my sister. So we kind of did that together. And once I completed a marathon, and I thought in my head, what else am I capable of? I can do this. What else am I capable of? So I started looking at longer distances and things like that. And so I just grew upon that. And yeah, I just love getting out there. I'm one of those weirdos who I won't listen to like music or podcasts or anything when I run. If I'm not running with friends, I'll just run by myself and just think the whole time. It's like a form of meditation for me, for sure. And if I don't get my run in, the rest of my day is not going to be as good.
Do you run every day?
Pretty close, yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I use, so you might think I'm psycho, but I use my dog as an excuse. Like, well, my dog has to get out and do some miles. You know what I mean? So I use him as an excuse to get out every day to make sure he gets tuckered out,
Your dog did not know what it was signing up for when it chose you as the owner. What kind of dog do you have?
A golden doodle, a Booker. He's an 85-pound golden doodle. So the vet says, he's a really big dog, so his limbs are probably going to be worn out, but I give him supplements. But I tell him all the time, like, I go, do you know how lucky you are, how active like you are as a dog? And he doesn't understand. I don't know what's going on. He doesn't get it.
One of our kids has a golden doodle, and the only curl in the hair, it looks like a golden retriever entirely, except for the ears. The ears have this crimped almost look to it. It's almost look like the ears are crimped. It's absolutely adorable. Golden doodles are one of the most, you can't ask for a better dog than that. As far as I'm concerned, that should be the picture of the dog on the dog chow bag. Like, there's no more stereotypical dog than that. It's beautiful.
I agree. And they're the friendliest dogs in the world. I don't know what I would do without Booker. So,
and how old is Booker
He's
now?
Very therapeutic. 7, just turned 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, they are. They're totally therapeutic. Now I want to, did you have any pets growing up?
I had cats growing up.
Yeah?
Like 3 cats. And I love all animals, but I think I'm definitely more of a dog person. But I don't mind cats either. But yeah, I had cats growing up. And they weren't like the friendliest of cats. And so, and I was nice to them, but they were kind of outdoor cats. They would run outside and they would bring back mice all the time and things like that. So, but yeah. But Booker loves cats
translation.
Too. Yeah.
I was going to say it's lost in translation. It's for the family. They're bringing them back because they love you. That's why they're bringing them back. But, so how old were you when your stepdad came into your life?
So actually, one of my first memories is actually meeting him. So my mom got divorced when she was around, I think she was around 32. And so I was
Yep.
around 4 years old. My brother was 6 years old, and my sister was 3 years old. And my mom recently got divorced, like I said, and we were just hanging out at our house. And one day I was upstairs playing with like my He-Man action figures, and I hear the doorbell ring. So I rush downstairs to see what's going on because normally that doesn't happen at our house. As I get to the bottom of the stairs, standing before me is like this 6'3" tall man with like a big brown beard and like bifocal glasses. And as a 4-year-old, I'm just stunned. I'm just looking in awe. And by this time, my mom, who had answered the door, went and like grabbed something out of the kitchen, like something to drink. So it's just me and this intimidating figure. And as any 4-year-old would do, I just kind of punched him in the leg and giggled just to say hi. And so what this man did was he made a fist himself too and punched little 4-year-old Kyle right in the stomach back. And I just keeled over and I couldn't scream out because I couldn't breathe and tears are coming down my face. And my mom has no idea what was going on because she was in the kitchen. And this man just did that, didn't apologize, and just walked around me and just into the kitchen with my mom. And I just scampered upstairs. And that was my first memory, my first interaction with my stepfather, Ben, or as my sister and I call him, Big Bad Ben, or Triple B for short. And that's where
is Triple B still around?
Oh yeah. So, and we get into that too. My mom is still married to him. And that's another thing that I had to write at the end of the book because I confronted my mom about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there, folks. There you go. If there's a foreshadowing moment or a tease right here, we're gonna get to it. Let's go back to the beginning. Your brother, your sister, did they have a similar introduction to him, or did you let them know? Did you warn them?
No, because I didn't know what was going on. And again, I'm only 4 years old, and I don't recall if I said anything to him, but I doubt I did. I probably just went upstairs and cried, and little did I know this was going to be my life for the next 15 or so years. But as we grew up, my brother and my sister, we knew that he was not a mean person, but we never really talked about it. But we all had this communal, I don't want to say hate, maybe fear of him for sure. It was definitely a fear. So, and we all knew that, and so you might think, well, what about your mom? Didn't she care? I would say, yeah, my mom did care, but my mom didn't know what to do. She wanted a father for her kids, and she thought it was so important to have a father. It almost didn't matter. And so she rationalized a lot of things that he was doing.
Yeah.
So, to stay with him. And she didn't think it was going to be okay. She thought, oh, boys will be boys. And again, I don't think she knew how to handle it. She's like, oh, it was so important for her to have a father. I'm sure there's probably some financial reasons too. She was a single mom with 3 kids. So that was and then also this made it even worse. She made us call him dad and say we loved him. And that went on until 6 or 7 years ago when I confronted her, which was crazy. And then I told her, you can't do this anymore. This is insane. And so she was always just
even into adulthood, she
1,000%. She would still sign cards like "Love, Mom, and Dad," and it was just I'm referring to our stepfather, and it was just it always made us feel guilty. Oh, we have to do this for mom. We have to pretend to play this game. She was always pretending, and she wanted to have this picture perfect family, pretend to everybody else around that, hey, we're all good. We're a perfect family. She didn't want to admit that she made another mistake or, and she wanted to go back on it. So she's kind of dug in her heels and just went forward. And it was to the detriment of everybody, the kids and herself.
And it's such a complex issue in so many ways, and many times we rationalize as opposed to confronting, because the confronting just seems so big, and so so the rationalizations start coming and justifications, and many times you don't know what you don't know at that point,
right?
And I just want to, before we get into this part, because I do want to get into this, but your mother and your father divorced. What happened with your father?
So my biological father, moved to Florida, met somebody else, and he, we would see him occasionally. He would send me cards on Christmas and my birthday, but we didn't have a really, really close relationship. But I didn't have any hatred for him. We'd talk. I'd text him on Father's Day, Happy Father's Day, and things like that. But he wasn't really around. He had no idea what was going on. And as a toddler and as a teacher, I wasn't really able to relate what was going on at home. And again, I didn't know this was bad. I thought this was kind of normal.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell him what was going on. And we didn't have that kind of close relationship where I would have confided in him anyhow. But that's where is going on with him. And he's still
I
alive
wanna-
today too.
We can, okay. And has he read the book?
No. So, and this is actually hot up. This interesting that you brought this up. He just found out about it. And I don't know if he read it or not, but he read the synopsis for sure, because he texted me and said, hey, I didn't know this was going on. And I was thinking in my head, but maybe if you're around more, you would have known what was going on. And
Sure.
and I'm not blaming him, I'm not yelling at him, but if he would have been involved more, like, I don't think he cared to know what was going on, to be honest with you. So I don't know. So that's his kind of reaction. And I think he sent a message to my mom saying something to her about it, although they don't communicate at all. So I think he's not very happy about it, but again, he can't, he's kind of fake rage a little bit, because if he was around a lot more, he would have known what was going on a little bit, I would think. But
Well, do you have kids?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. So here's something I'm going to throw out there too. Like I think about my granddaughter. I think about my granddaughter is my favorite thing in the whole world. And I know, even though I spend, like, I see her 5 days a week, we go to MMA twice a week. She sleeps over. She slept over at our house once a week, basically every week since she was 2 weeks old. So we've got a really, really deep relationship with her.
Sure.
And one of the things that I know for a fact, despite the time I spend with her, despite all of these things, I know I'm not perfect, and I know I'm screwing up, and I know there's going to be something 10 or 15 years later that hopefully she will have the wherewithal to confront me, and hopefully I'm a source that would accept that confrontation, right. And I think I would be, and many people would be that. Again, you think you're the only one, but you don't know what else is going on around. Like, I love that you talk about that. The question I want to ask you is, when did you know that what you were going through wasn't normal? But I'll finish this thought. But I wanted to prep you with that question, because that's fascinating to me. I'm super curious as to how old you were when the light bulb went on to know that this wasn't normal, what you were going through. But I know for a fact that Alara will come to me at some point in my life and say, hey, Pa, you did this and this and this, or didn't do this and this and this. And I know there'll be regret. I know that I will feel that. Like, I just know it, because it's happened in every generation of every parent and kid since the beginning of time. And I'm curious how I'd react to that. So I was very curious about your dad's reaction.
Sure. Well, but also I think the difference to you, sure, you might make mistakes and things like that, but I don't know if they're going to be traumatic, lifelong mistakes on them. I'm not saying, but
from your lips to God's ears, my friend. Right. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
So,
but yeah. But it'll be very interesting to see what this does with you two and his reaction to that. And I hope my hope of just, getting to know you right here. My hope is that somehow, some way, this book will help others heal. I know you want to be a light in the world. I mean, a wandering spark, it's a light in the world to help other people that have gone through stuff like this. My hope for you is that this will help your family relations as well.
Sure.
I hope it'll be a catalyst for that. That would be has it been that yet, or is it still too fresh?
So I thought when I had that conversation with my mom, I thought it was going to be, I go, this is going to be so much better for us. But it was, to be honest with you, it was kind of the opposite effect. She kind of just dug her heels in and just pretended like everything's okay. You know what I mean? And she's ignoring this. She didn't go to like my book launch or anything like that. And so it's kind of made it a little more strange, a little more tougher. And, obviously I'm very open to talking to my mom about this if she wants to talk about it. And I'm not going to yell. I mean, I forgive her, and not that I'm in some place to be handing out forgiveness, but I love my mom very much, and I want, I want the best for her. I just want her to be happy, but I know she's probably had some things going on in her life that she had to deal with. I don't know for a fact, not that I'm aware of, but she's probably really, really scared. So I have to be very understanding for that. So you can't change anybody. You just have to be there for them if they want to talk. And I just want to go back to you. You talked about my biological dad's reaction about what was going on. You would have done something different, because remember, he texted me when he found it. He didn't call and say, hey, I got it. You know what I mean? And so I think that speaks volumes too. And like, he's never like followed up after that, saying, hey, how's everything going? You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what encapsulates our relationship a little more. Like, he texted me that, like, his outrage, and didn't call and say, how's everything? What's going on? What's going on with this? So, and I think, most men, most stand-up men would call and say, hey, let's work this out. Let's talk to me about your feelings, things like that.
So what I'm hearing is that you came up in an environment where confronting things, vulnerability, speaking up when things, something smells, speaking up about that, was not even close to being encouraged. And you learned this skill later on in life to the point where you can actually write about it and you've declared victory over this. And that's commendable. The Big Bad Ben, did he treat your mom the same way? And from what you witnessed, did he treat your mom the same way that he treated the kids?
I didn't see, so verbally, emotional abuse for sure.
Okay.
I didn't see as much physical violence towards her at all, but there's definitely, maybe a couple shoves here and there, but I didn't see what he was doing to the kids to her. But there's definitely verbal and emotional abuse. I mean, he yelled at her constantly. Like, it was always screaming at our house 24/7. It was just, it was not good.
I can relate to you with that. That was my dad's anger. He never got physically violent, but the screaming and the yelling and all of that. To this day, I get triggered by, and I don't like using the word triggered. I become very, very activated and agitated when I hear the right. I don't even know if it's the harmonic, the harmonic value of the yelling, but if I hear a certain yelling at a certain time, I go right back to that moment, those moments when I was a kid. Are same thing for you?
Very much. I mean, I've been working on healing a lot, done some therapy, reading, and just trying to put a light on this. So I'm a lot better now, and my reactions are a lot more different. And also what's interesting too, Mike, like, you would think, Ben is like some sort of like alcoholic or something. Like, he didn't really even drink. He was just an angry, like, not like, and I'm sure, like, and I know this somewhat, his father too was very, very abusive to him. So it was kind of just passed down to generation. So, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I'm saying it wasn't because of alcohol or anything like that. It's just how he was raised. And he had a lot of anger issues. He didn't know how to deal with it. And he was like, I don't think he wanted the life he was in. He was really taking it out on me and my siblings, to be honest with you.
And that's so you described fairly well, and respectfully, how he treated your mom. What did, if obviously people want to read the book, they can go into, and in the book, how graphic do you get about it? And what was some examples, if you don't mind talking about it?
I don't get too graphic about it. So maybe a little bit. So what he did to the kids. So as we got a little bit older, he had this about 2 foot long stick, about 2 inches wide. It was painted red, and my sister and I called it like the Red Baron or Big Red or something like that. And so he used that on us. But what made it worse, to be honest with you, is he would place it in like these very, on the mantle or in the corner, so we always saw it. So wherever we were, and that's what made
psychological mind manipulation type stuff.
So I was so terrified. Like, I was more terrified of it actually just coming than it happened. I almost wanted just to get it over with, just let it come. So that was the worst part, is just the psychological of seeing that all the time. I was just in fear all the time whenever he was going to come home. Like, oh, what did I do? Or like, just try to stay away from him as much as possible. And so,
was it unfounded, or was it just such a high standard that perfection is the only thing that's allowed?
I'm sure he did not have high standards at all.
Okay.
Like, he wasn't that. I think he was just, if he was angry, like, we were he would take it on as us, or like, it was just like
you're a living punching bag almost.
Something like that. So like, he just wanted to be left alone, I guess. And if I was like being a kid, you wouldn't like it. So I think that was, I think that was the biggest part. I just don't think he was father material. He just wasn't good with kids, to say the least.
Kyle, I'm fascinated because you and I never had the physical at all, but the fear certainly and whatnot. I'm super curious. Did you have other aspects of your childhood that were particularly happy?
Yeah. So, on the outside, my mom would tell you, yeah, I played baseball. I played all the sports. I had friends. I skateboarded. And so, yeah, I did all of those things. And so it was just the home life. And so, yeah, I definitely.
Genuine joy in those moments, or was it a mask?
So that's a great question. So I did enjoy those moments. And so now, like, because when I talked to my mom and told her about this, she would say almost that it's like, you had a good childhood? Like you would like trying to reinforce like I had good things. And I'm trying to think, well, did I? And I had to tell her, I was like, no, I had some good moments. She's like, and she would try to rationalize, oh, those moments make up for what happened. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost okay. So yes, I did have some genuine good moments, and I talk about this in the book. I didn't know how to have like real friends. I thought like, because my stepfather would call me loser. So I thought I had to have friends who would call me names or put me down. And so I just kind of started hanging out with those kinds of people, those people, that were doing drugs, drinking, anybody, anything to escape my home life. And so
which makes it even harder for you to have this realization moment that we're building up to where this isn't normal. That makes it harder because if you had close, tight-knit friendships where y'all could compare notes, not even just by speaking it, but just seeing the environment that they grow up in, in a deeper way, it would have given you more perspective potentially, but not even being able to connect below the surface, that prolongs that moment.
Right. And so I'll tell you, so the realization was, so as I grew up, I got into high school. And when I was into high school, I was hanging out with these bad kids. I was a bad kid too, you know what I mean? But just the wrong group. We were doing lots of drugs, drinking, things like that. I was getting into fights. I was getting arrested all the time, underage drinking, assault, things like that. And I was getting expelled from school. And I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why? And my other friends weren't getting like expelled or kicked out, but I was. And I didn't realize, they don't have I didn't know it at the time, but they didn't have the same home life I had. And I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't handle it. And I was just trying to escape. And now I know I was trying to escape, and it was a cry for help. Hey, because every time I get expelled, my mom will get called, or every time I get arrested, obviously my mom will get called. And so I got expelled one year, and then next year I come back and I'm doing the same stuff. And like, I remember I like failed a test and I knew I could have passed it. And I was just so upset with myself. And so what I did, and I'm, 17 years old, I'm in my 5th year of high school. And I was like, I just want to stop this madness. And so what I decided to do is I went and turned myself into drug rehab, not because I was some sort of alcoholic or I was getting high and drinking all the time, kind of like maybe to the extreme more high school than normal high school kids do.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Did your mom know this at the time?
That I was
the behavior that you're describing, many times as the parents are parent deaf to things. She obviously likes to rationalize things already. There's already a sugar coating of things or whatever. Did she find out in the book that you were into this behavior as deep as you were, or did she know it back then?
She did. She found out back then. She had an idea that I was doing that for sure. Because so I had to go turn myself into drug rehab when I was 17, but you're not allowed to do that as a minor. You can only get into drug rehab. You have to have someone sign you in, or you get a court order from the courts as a kid. And so I was like, it was very rare I was like one of the first kids to show up like, hey, I want to do drug rehab as a 17-year-old. Like, what are you doing? But I was just there. I just needed to stop the madness. I needed to get away from, Ben, my stepfather, and I needed to get away from like my friends. Because a little bit of me knew like I needed to stop, and I didn't know what the answer was. And so I thought this was the answer. And so when I turned myself in, they go, you can't do this. And my mom actually worked, it was like a big hospital and they had like a drug rehab wing, and my mom worked in that hospital. So they called her and had her come down, and she signed me in. And it was kind of a sense of relief for her, because she was like, oh, he's finally getting, doing something, getting some help. And
was she shocked?
No, she was relieved. She was happy. Like, I wouldn't say happy, like, great, my son's going to drug rehab, but no, she was
no, relieved. Like, no, yes. I get that. He's doing something responsible. Excellent. Right. Like, no, right. I get that. But like, was she on shift? Like, you just showed up and they called up to, the pediatrics or wherever and said, hey, come on down here. Your kid's signing himself in. Was that the moment?
So it was in the middle of the school day and she was at work. And so,
oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah. This is a ridiculous moment. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was like, and they go, you can't sign in. I go, well, actually my mom works and she was a histologist. And so they called her down. She came in and signed me in. And that's how it is.
So, So at 17, you knew you were different.
A little bit different, but I still didn't have the realization on how bad it was. Okay. So I'm starting to get there because I needed something to stop the madness. And drug rehab was fine. It was good. I was there for a little while. But again,
was it a 12-step?
It was a 12-step. So it's interesting. Okay. All the kids in there were court ordered. So no matter what, and we don't have to I'm not in recovery or anything like that. So I can't really speak about 12-step. They did force us to go to 12-step like AA meetings. So I'm like at a 17-year-old going to these AA meetings. It was a very odd experience. You know what I mean? If you need it or not, they were making you go to these AA meetings. And maybe it's something I needed at the time. But
what was your higher power? Do you remember?
I don't. I'm sure it's like God,
Yeah, just you're a kid. Oh, just God.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, I'm sorry to go off on
No, you're fine.
there, but that's fascinating to me that your mom was there on shift and it was the middle of the school day.
Yeah.
I mean, did you end up graduating high school?
Yeah. So yes. However, there's still, so after drug rehab,
keep going.
I go back to school, and by this time, this is my 6th year of high school. And so what they decide to do is they throw me in school suspension. And what in-school suspension is, you just sit in the classroom, you can't sleep, you can't talk, you don't change classes, you get all your work taken to you. And this was like actually saving grace for me. I wasn't allowed to be around my friends or anything like that. I was just in-school suspension working on it, and you get 2 chaperoned bathroom breaks. However, the in-school suspension teacher, his name was Mr. Brady. And I was actually allowed to talk to him about my schoolwork. And I was in school suspension so much that year that I actually got to know him and he got to know me. And this was the first adult role model. He took me aside one day and he said, "You know what, Kyle, I believe in you. Like, you can actually do something with your life. Like, you're not an idiot. You're not a loser. Like, you got to stop hanging out with these friends." And he said something to the effect, he didn't say this exactly, he said, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. He didn't say that exact thing, but something to that effect.
Yep.
And I was like listening to him because it's something I wanted to hear so bad, because I believed in myself that I didn't really, because nobody's ever told me this before. Yeah. And so that was the first time, like, that seed.
It's almost a fantasy.
Right.
It's literally almost a fantasy that exists. That could exist.
It blew my world open, because all adult men aren't like these mean, terrible human beings. It blew my world. I was like, oh my God. And I'm like getting emotional now thinking about it. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And so that's when the seed was planted in me. Like, maybe I am, maybe I can do something, maybe I can be somebody, if I just work at it. So that was the first time I kind of realized, like, not all men were like my stepfather, and some men are kind, some men are nice, some men want to push you forward, want you to be better. And so,
Kyle, can I ask you a question? Do you aspire to having kids?
I'm very open to it. It's just never happened to me, and we can. Yeah. And I'm sure,
just so you know, if you do, I'm just trying to say to you, what you just said, you're breaking a chain there. If you do decide to have kids. No, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you're going to have your own, sets of problems and all that stuff, because nothing's perfect. But that's a major, as a father, I just got to tell you, you would be an absolutely incredible father based on what you just said.
No, I appreciate
you'd raise somebody who's gonna do some good, real big good in the world because of what you experienced and what you just described, what you would aspire to build someone. And it just, it's really, really beautiful. So I just wanted to comment that to you. Please continue in the story. Let's keep going.
Sure. And just one other thing I want to say about that. My brother is a father, and he's he did break the cycle. He's so good to his kid. It's unbelievable. Awesome. I want to be a father exactly like him. And so I just want to throw that out. Do you live near
each other?
But yes. My brother lives about 45 minutes south of me. So, yeah.
So what's the, is it a boy or a girl that he has?
He has 2 boys, and my sister has two boys. So I guess we all just produce males for some reason. So I have 4 nephews.
What's your relationship like with your nephews?
So I talk to them often. My nephew actually texted me the other day. He's older. He's going to come move closer to me. He said he just got an apartment. So I do talk to him. They're great. And I talk to my sister almost every day, and I talk to my brother pretty often as well. So
I love being Uncle Mike. I got a couple of nephews, and I always aspired to be the fun but very different uncle. I always love being that role. It's fun taking an uncle role, whatever your dynamic is. It's a really fun role to be.
Sure. Yeah. And so when I wasn't in school suspension, I was allowed to go to classes and things like that. And now I'm like 18 or 19 years old, my 6th year of high school. I can't get in any trouble now, because if I get in trouble, I go to like adult jail, like real jail. So one day after school, I was walking across the street, and I guess I was making fun of some kid, and his girlfriend told him. And so this kid was outside after school and he wanted to fight me. And this was a very big kid. And I did not want to fight him, because he could beat me. I wasn't very tough. I just acted tough because I was very insecure and scared. And also I knew I could not get in any trouble. If I got in trouble, it was not, I couldn't get arrested because I'd go to adult jail. So this kid wanted to fight me and I was very scared of this. So I was just trying to run away from him. But before I knew it, there's a crowd of like 100 kids like around us, and like how they are in high school, fight. And I'm just running around in circles, trying to run away from them. Before I know it, I get arrested. I get arrested for assault, disturbing the peace, like all kinds of charges. And my mom will not give me a lawyer this time because she doesn't believe me. And this, like, I didn't do anything. I did not throw it. I did not swing. I did not punch. I did not do anything. There was no assault, anything like that. But I still get arrested for this. So I have to go to court. My mom won't give me a lawyer this time. And she has got me lawyers in the past when I was a juvenile for fighting and things like that. But she didn't believe me, for starters, so that I didn't do anything wrong. And to her credit, I didn't give her any reason for her not to believe me. So I was like, but I knew in my heart I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not going to, take any plea deals or anything like that. So what I decided to do was I'm going to represent myself. So I go to court and I'm sitting there, the prosecutor's there, the judge is there, and the arresting officer's there, and the prosecutor's, asking the arresting officer, do you see the person in court who was involved in the altercation, the assault? And the officer points me out. And I was like, oh no. And then so he asked a couple more questions. Then it was my turn. And the judge goes, do you want to ask some questions? I'm thinking in my head, yes, I want to ask some questions. So, I get up and I'm a shaking voice and I'm just, the judge kind of calms me down. He goes, it's okay. You know what I mean? Just ask the police officer questions. So I asked the police officer, well, where were you when you first saw me involved in this altercation? He said, about 75 yards. And I go, where? He goes, sitting in my police cruiser. And I go, what did you see? He goes, I saw about 100 kids. And then I asked him, so from 75 yards, sitting in your police cruiser through 100 kids, you saw me assault somebody else? He goes, well, I can't really say for a fact, definitively. And that was it. I was found not guilty. Case was dismissed.
You got to give maximum respect for him to say that.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. Says, yeah. I mean,
because it doesn't always work that way.
No, I agree.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes. But I also it'd be hard I'm trying to brag about my lawyer skills, but it'd be hard for him to say that he did see that from because you have to build it up a little bit, that he did see that from 75 yards away sitting, you know what I mean? Agreed.
But you're a kid with the reputation that you have and the history that you have. He could have easily, quote unquote, white lied it,
sure.
I give it up to him anytime I hear someone in law enforcement own up to something, whatever year it was. I was like, yeah, that's good. We need more of that.
No, anyway. It was good. It was great. So I was found not guilty.
So you got off. You complete dismissal.
Complete dismissal, and
hallelujah. That's
exactly.
Amazing.
And so what Mr. Brady told me before is and it's that seed that a belief in me started to believe oh my God, I can do this. I can be something. I can do something in this world if I just believe in myself and do what's right. And so I graduated, to answer your question before, I graduated high school after 6 years with a 1.046 GPA. I think I was 346 out of 349. After 6 years of high school, I did graduate. And so, after...
I got to say this, Kyle. You know what they call a doctor who finished at the bottom of his class?
What's that?
A doctor.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You graduated at the bottom of your class. Give me the damn dogwood. I'm a graduate. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You did it.
Yep,
you did it with all that. That's good for you, man.
Yep.
That shows your tenacity right there.
Yep. So I have a high school diploma, 6 years high school diploma. So after that, I got a job at an oil change place, to be frank, and I know nothing about cars, Mike. So I'm working at an oil change place. So that just gives you, I want to give a highlight, whoever goes out to get the Quickie Lube oil change, just beware a little bit, because not that I messed up anyone's cars, but I know nothing about cars and I worked there for a while. Just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was working there for a while and I was thinking to myself, this is not what I want out of life. I do not want to, be an oil change. So I decided to take the ACT and not studying at all. And I went in hungover, but I did good enough to get into college. And I was like,
holy shit.
So I get into college and I was like, well, I don't want to mess this up. And so I hunker down and I just study my ass off. and I make the dean. I almost get a 4.0 my first semester of college, and this after 6 years of high school, 1.046 GPA. So I was like, I'm off to the races. It was amazing. I thought I was off to the races, but no. Some other things happen in life. But I was very happy that I fucking knew it. You know what I mean? I knew I was smart. And Mr. Brady was right. I knew if I believed in myself and apply myself, and I could do this. So it reaffirmed what I was capable of. And it was just a great feeling, to do that. So once I got that, I transferred colleges because I wanted to go to a little bit better school. And so I was able to get the transfer with my GPA. And once I transferred school, I started hanging out with another group of friends, not bad friends. They were just bad for me. They were into the drinking. They were into the drugs again. So I kind of got deep into that with them again because they were just experiencing this kind of stuff for the first time because they were in college. I already did all this in high school. And now here I go again in college. And then one day I was driving down to the bars, and we are doing like power hour where you have to drink a certain amount every minute or something like that. And we thought it was a good idea to drive home. And so everyone piled into my Jeep. And as we're driving home, we take a left onto our street, and I run right into a telephone pole, total my Jeep, get a DUI, get arrested. Everyone goes to the hospital. And I'm like, great, here it is. Here's my life again. It's just like high school. I've not learned
the lessons the lessons that you are learning. My God.
Yep.
Now, it's easy to say that now, X amount of decades later, but
sure.
Oh my God, were you ever put through the fire, man?
Mm-hmm. And I thought, and then so I had to call my mom once again. It's funny. I didn't need to call her because I was left out on my own recognizance, but I did call her, and I talk about this in the book. And so I get out, and I just, and I tried to rationalize it, and I did a little bit, oh, you're in college. So at least you're in college. It's okay. You got a DUI. You know what I mean? It's a normal thing. Like it's part of the college experience. And then now
it was a different time as well, by the way, when
sure.
it comes to that stuff.
I agree. Yes. But also I have to think of what my life was before that. Now, Kyle, you also put 3 people in the hospital too. That's not normal. Thank God they're all okay. You know what I mean? And so they're all just fine. But that was really, really scary incident. And so
That's a traumatic moment. That's a traumatic moment.
For sure.
If that happened to me right now, it would be a traumatic moment. It's a traumatic moment at any time.
Right. And so I was just beating myself up like, you haven't learned anything. Nothing's changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of belief in myself. And I was just reaffirming what my stepfather always told me, that I was a loser, you know what I mean? That I wasn't going to amount to anything. And so I limped through, I eventually graduated college with like a 2.02, no job prospects, nothing going on, and so that's where I'm at in life right now, and I have nothing to do. So out of the blue, I have a friend who actually lived in San Francisco, California, and he goes, hey, do you want to come live out here? And I was like, yeah, I do. And it was like, you might call it running away. I was kind of running away from my problem, but it was nice to just get away from all the madness that was going on back home. And it's kind of, all my old friends and things like that, and just try to start anew. And it was good. It was good for a little while. I was out there, kind of got, things together. I was bartending, and things were going pretty well. And I thought, you know what? I want more out of life. I want to do more out of life, but what can I do? And I thought back in my time, in high school when I was asking that officer questions, I was like, I could be a lawyer. I could do this. So I studied, I took the LSAT, and I took it a couple of times, but I got good enough to get into a law school. And so I started going to law school. And so that's how that all came to fruition. And I know I'm kind of going through this a little fast, but just
no. We're hitting the broad strokes of the book. People buy the damn book, everybody. Wandering Spark.
Thank you.
Like seriously, these stories are unbelievable, and we're hitting the tent poles here, but the beautiful part is in the details. And there's the overarch that we're doing here is beautiful, but man, getting into it, I'm already feeling connected to this story. So no problem. So law school.
Yeah. So law school. So Mike, law school is it's no joke. High school, college, you can kind of limp through, not study. Like the way I graduated college was I just went to class you know what I mean? Minus the day I got arrested for DUI, but I just went to class every day. Like that's the only reason why I graduated college. You just go to class all the time, and enough seeped in. But law school, you have to study it's no joke. You will fail out. And so I was like, I'm not missing this opportunity. I'm not going to mess this up. And so what I did, and I knew, I just grabbed the 2 smartest kids and just hung out with them all 3 years. And it's very easy to find the 2 smartest kids. They're always raising their hand. You know what I mean? I was like, you two, I'm hanging out with you two and that's exactly what I did, and it was great. And so I made the dean's list.
That's street smart right there, by the way. That's knowing your surroundings and understanding.
But I knew what would happen if I hung out with the kids, like the partiers, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to handle that. I would not be able to party and just relax and do law school. I needed to do it very seriously. I needed to do what I needed to do.
Geographically, where were you?
I was in Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, so what school?
Western Michigan Law School.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you do it in
Thomas
4 years?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yep.
I have a question about law school. The one thing that I like arguing, and I'm as good. I'm good at some of the things that a lawyer needs from a skill set point of view. The thing that detracted me immediately was I did a job share with a lawyer once, and they gave me a copy of the Canadian Criminal Code. And they said, okay, so in this area of law, which is a lot of where arguing happens, and the stuff that I wanted was, you have to know the precedent. And the precedent is basically maybe not committing to memory, but boy, having a good handle on precedent. Was that something that you had to learn? Was that a part of your journey? How big of part of the law school is? I've always been curious.
Well, memorization is a huge thing the way our law school worked is you take a whole semester of classes and you're not allowed to bring anything to the test. And the test is like 3 hours and they just give you this and you just have to like spit it out and you have to, do an analysis, I talk about this in the book. There's actually an IRAC method where you go through these steps of how to be a lawyer, so to speak. And so law school taught me how to look at different angles and be more empathetic for somebody else's argument and other side, but also as bad things so I can know what side they're taking. So I was able to turn it around a little bit, and maybe use it against them and things like that. But it is actually the first time I, applied myself. It maybe, changed my way of thinking and see the world in a different way. And in law school, I made the dean's list one year. I got a certificate of merit in one class, which is getting the highest grade in one of the classes, which is amazing. And so it was actually great, but the victory was not going to be that sweet because in order to practice law, you have to take something called the character and fitness evaluation. That means they have to they do like a whole FBI background check. And all 3 years of law school, I'm scared to death of this thing. Because, I'm afraid to tell them exactly everything, even things you didn't get arrested for, you have to share all your whole juvenile record, everything. And they do this whole complete, and you can't lie. And if you lie, they'll know, and you won't be able to, become a lawyer. So I thought all 3 years, I kind of lived in fear because I didn't think I was going to be a lawyer. I was like, oh, at the worst, fine, I'll have my Juris Doctorate. You know what I mean? And so to graduate law school, you have to take an internship. So I just applied to internships in New York City, and eventually I got an internship in New York City. So now I'm living in New York City, working at this matrimonial divorce law firm. But I hated every second of it, to be honest with you, because these guys were just completely miserable. They were working 70, 80 hours a week. And I was just like their gopher, not even really doing legal stuff, just billing clients and doing a bunch of nonsense. I was just under so much stress, and I was having panic attacks, and it was just taking a toll on my mental health. I was scared of this character and fitness evaluation and things like that. So that was my experience. Right.
Can I ask?
Sure.
We've stumbled into an organic piece of fascination for me, and that is New York City. I love New York City very, 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 very much. It's always been a magical place for me, and I've only had magical memories there. I haven't had memories where I was traumatized by bosses and all of that stuff, but yet I'm still fascinated. Did you live in the city? How did you pay your rent? What kind of accommodations did you have there?
Sure.
That's a cool, living in New York City and working in New York City is a pretty cool footnote in one's past. That's excellent. Was it all terrible, or did you get to enjoy the city a little bit?
No, I loved just that experience. I loved living in New York City. I lived there for 5 years, and so it was just that experience. So in the city and in Brooklyn. But so I talked about this a little bit in the book. My first experience living in New York, I defined a place to live. And so back then you get on Craigslist and you find a place to live. And I found this place in Soho. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is going to be cheap rent or whatever. Well, at the time, it was like $900,000. At the time, that was real cheap rent for, living
Really cheap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I show up at this loft apartment and I get in there and I find out, it's not a bedroom. It's just a partition in the middle of like this guy's living room. Not only that, there's a French foreign exchange student sleeping in my bed that I'm supposed to have. And so he has to like kick him out. That was like my first experience, like moving there. Like there's somebody sleeping in my bed. It wasn't a room. It was a disaster. I'm like, what did I get myself into? And so,
yeah, you know what? Woody Allen could write that moment. That's like the most stereotypical New York thing I've ever heard because of the bizarreness of it. It's just, that's unbelievable.
So the way I paid, in law school, you're not really supposed to have a job. You have to work part-time. You have law school loans that pay for a lot of things. But now that I was an internship, I needed more money. So as soon as I got to New York City, I just applied to jobs. And so on the weekends, I worked at Applebee's right by the World Trade Center when they were building the World Trade Center. So all the construction guys would come in at lunchtime. So I saw all the guys who built the World Trade Center every day. And so I was working at Applebee's, and that's how I paid for, supplemented a lot of my life. And the thing with New York City is you're always looking to move somewhere better. So every year I went from Soho to Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn, then over to Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, and then to Park Slope in Brooklyn. So every year I'm moving. And so I lived like 4 or 5 different places over my 5 years.
Hell's Kitchen is up there for me. The Village, my wife would say Hell's Kitchen because it's central enough. We got friends on the Upper East and Upper West Side, so it's central. So that's the reason. But you got to live in Hell's Kitchen for a year. Were the restaurants then what they are now?
Well, so back then I didn't have any money, so I couldn't really experience that much of the restaurants. You know what I mean? But yes, I've heard people talk about. But yes, the restaurants were amazing back then.
Also very New York.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Wow. And so how did it go?
And what do I want to start with? So first, let's talk about.
Are we at the review? Is that where we're at right now, or like you've set a beautiful table here talking about this?
The review of what?
You going through the review?
Oh yeah, so yeah, let's talk about the review, and then there's something very important that happened to me after the review that I don't want to forget about. And so I'll tell you about. So the character and fitness review, it's an interview, and so every attorney in New York City has to take a character and fitness evaluation and be interviewed by an officer of the court. And so after I was done with my internship and I graduated law school, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna throw caution and win. I'm here. I'm gonna apply for the character and fitness. Although, and it's easy for me to say that now. I really did not think I was gonna and I'm saying this straight. I thought they were just gonna say hell no. I was scared. I was like, what am I doing this for? This is stupid. I'm just kind of expose myself to all of this and not be it. And I really did believe that at the time. I was so scared. And I almost talked myself out of not doing this. So anyhow, you have to do an interview, and before the interview, you have to submit everything you've done bad. So I had to fly back to Ohio. I went to every single police station, had to get certified copies of all my arrest records and submit it to the bar to get approved. And so I go to the day of the interview.
Even the dismissed one?
Everything. Yes. Everything.
God damn.
Yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. Speeding tickets, everything. Everything. And so I get to the interview, and these kids are going in the interview just like that. You know what I mean? In and out, in and out, in and out. And the kids are there for 10, 15 minutes. No joke, Mike, I'm there for 2 hours. And I go, what's taking so long? And they go, we're waiting for a special prosecutor. And so I'm sitting there waiting for a special prosecutor. She shows up. She has my file. It's thick. You got red tags coming out of it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I was like, oh no, here we go. So finally I get
highlighted parts. There's highlighted parts there as well.
Everything. It's like they've never seen a file like this before in their life for some reason. Well, maybe they haven't. And so I sit down with her and I'm like, what are we going to talk about? She's going through my file here. She's going through my thing. She goes, quite the record here. I go, yeah. And I'm, shaking. I'm scared. This is it. She pulls out a piece of paper. She starts asking about it. She goes, oh, I see you got a speeding ticket last year. I was late to going to class one day in law school, and I got pulled over and I got a speeding ticket. And she's looking at that. I guess she's talking to me about it because it's the most recent thing. And yeah, I got a speeding ticket. I was late for class trying to explain it to her. She goes, well, how do I know you're not going to do this anymore? And I go, well, ma'am, it's New York City. I don't have a car anymore. It's not possible. And she goes, oh yeah, I guess not. And then she just,
oh my God, she let you off the hook. You were casual with her, and you just shot the shit, and she let you off.
Yeah. Then she keeps going through my file. She goes, you're going to be a good attorney, a good ethical attorney. I go, yeah. She goes, okay. Bam, stamp. That was it. I was a licensed New York attorney. And I was just like a whole relief, like washed over me. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. A guy who took 6 years to graduate high school, was in drug rehab, 1.046 GPA, a 2.0 GPA in college, got a DUI, a bunch of arrests. And now I was a licensed New York attorney. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, like finally, I was just like,
Kyle, I just got to say something right now. I'm really grateful that you're here telling this story, and I'm fascinated by it, and I'm enjoying this so much. You got to get on Rogan and tell this story. Like this
well,
is,
you talk
this
to
is
him.
Inspirational.
Get talk to him. I would love to.
This is an unbelievable story, and not just accepted, but like with the exclamation point, because it's a special prosecutor that's actually signed off on it. It's like it's the good news on steroids. It's the extras, the universe giving you that little extra confirmation, which is it's amazing.
Right.
What a dramatic moment.
And I almost let fear get them. Like I almost didn't even do it because I was so scared. I built this in my head, and it wasn't like, yes, it was a big deal, but I confronted it. Instead of hiding away from it and shying it, like I confronted it. And like I said before, it's easy for me to say now, but I'm telling you, at that point, I was terrified more than you could like. And also, all 3 years in high school, like living in New York City, I was having panic attacks. I was working for these guys. I was just, everything was coming to a head. I was terrified. I was scared to death. And
so I got to know, at that point, you've hit this peak of this mountain, and when you're at the peak, you can choose whichever direction you want to go in. And I'm super curious what your first move was. Like, how ambitious were you? More so, where did you want your ambitions to take you with this thing? Did you know the type of law you wanted to specialize in, or where you wanted to practice?
Sure. Great question. So I had such a bad experience at the matrimonial law firm. I wasn't set on those guys were so miserable. I wasn't sure if I wanted that kind of life. Yes, they were making great money, but those guys were not very happy. And I'm sure maybe that's not all attorneys, but that was my experience. I was like, I wasn't sold on being like a litigator or an attorney or doing like bankruptcy or matrimony or whatever it was. So I applied for a couple attorney jobs, but I also applied for alternative legal jobs where you need to be a lawyer, but you're not practicing. And as fate would have it, I got a job at a legal education company. And this is when my life really took a turn for the best. Like something very lucky for me happened. I got a job at a legal education company, and the owner of that company became one of my mentors and one of my good friends. I actually just went and saw him last week in New York City. And this
is cool.
This was a man who same age as me and like was running a company, and he taught me about like optimism, told me like the books to read, the podcast or things to listen to, and like just sat me down and like really cultivated what was inside me about like optimism, positively, overcoming and things like that. And he knew I had like something special. And I don't want to say I had something special, but he saw something in me I didn't really see in myself at that time. And so he just told me the books to read and just got me into it. Like I started doing like presentations at meetings at the company about like, I did something like called Kyle's Kool-Aid about like overcoming, being positive and things like that. And he just cultivated that. And I can't thank him enough for what he did. He took the time to me. He had these qualities that I wanted, like he wasn't afraid. Like he had this confidence that I wanted, that I craved so much. And I just drank in everything like he was saying. And he was able to take risks. He was able to tell people what he was thinking. And he just believed in himself. And I wanted to have that belief. So I just kind of did everything he kind of told me to do. And it wasn't a moment like, hey, I'm your mentor. It just kind of like worked out that way. And it was just an amazing moment.
Can I throw something out there?
Sure.
And forgive me if I'm late to the party, and if this symbolism is the obvious symbolism, but I still think it needs to be said. When you were in the suspended school program,
in school suspension, yep.
What was the name?
Mr.
What was his
Brady.
name? Mr. Brady. Thank you.
Well, fun fact,
I
and this has nothing to do
was
with
going to say
anything.
Mr. Wendell.
His
Go ahead.
name was Tom Brady, not the quarterback.
Shut up.
I swear to God. I swear to God.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful because you could choose, if you're a football fan, you could choose every time you hear Mr. Brady's name to think back and make that connection. That's a beautiful connection there. Brady, the kids at the front of the class who put their hands up that you sidled up to, and then now this, you've always, the watershed moments in your life, you've had mentors. You've been vulnerable enough to accept collaboration at minimum and flat out direction, at its zenith. And those are the watershed moments in this story. Now, is that intentional? Did I just kind of see it right? Or
no, you're right. So I think it's easier to connect the dots now, but I think at the time I was just craving somebody or something. And then once I found somebody that it was like believing in me, I just dove all in. And I was just like, I know when something's right for you or feels good for you, you know it, and I knew it. And when I had these friends that were not good for me in my heart, I knew it. I knew they were good for me. And so it wasn't, looking back now, yes, they were just definitely watershed moments, but I know that now it's easier, Steve Jobs said, it's easier to connect the dots going back and looking at it. But at that moment, I didn't know, but I knew what was good for me and I knew what I wanted. And again, when I found this job and my mentor in New York City, his name's David. Yeah. I call him Gary in the book. I changed a bunch of people's names, but I knew.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay. So I'm curious about that. In our book, we didn't change any names. There wasn't one name that we changed. And we look back on it and go, okay, I wonder what it would look like if we did. What facilitated the name changes? And are you glad you did it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against it. I did it because I was telling a story about some of my old friends, and I just wanted to change his name and didn't want to call him out or somebody specific. So it's if I'm changing one person's name, I'm going to change, everybody
who sees pretty much everybody or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
So that's why.
Do you get people? Have you had people asking you about characters in the book by their fictional name? Have you?
For sure. Yeah. People know who they are, and they're not all fictional. When I talk about my real friend, they're not all fictional. I just happened to do that for David, and I'm not sure why it didn't change his name. I don't know. I just made it easy. I just did.
I got another one real quick here. Okay, so 3 examples of mentorship. I want to stay on that for a second, and then say, okay, who are your mentors? Who are your mentor or mentors now at this moment?
Well, I still talk to my friend David in New York City. I just saw him last week.
He has that role
and so,
still?
Yeah.
He's still, okay,
And this is what I also tell people too. I always didn't think I had mentors, and I kind of use that as an excuse. You can find mentors dead or alive. Pick up a book. I mean, that's how and the good thing is they can't tell you no. You listen to the podcast, they can be your mentors. You can pick up a book, they can be your mentors. So that's what I do now. I'm not, I just look for people that can make me better. And so those are my mentors now. And so anybody could have any mentor they want. And so that's the way I look at it right now.
It's beautiful. That's it's very, very, very well said.
And what I'm into right now is, I don't know if you read any of Ryan Holiday's book and the Stoics. I'm very good. I'm very interested in the Stoics.
Okay, so this keeps not assaulting me in a good way. It's a volleyball that's lobbed over to me in many different aspects of my life. My granddaughter I spoke of earlier, her MMA coach, he's world class. He's put 5 people in the UFC. I think it's 5. And he was talking to me about stoicism and just I'm getting it from all these different spots in my life, from completely different directions. I'm fascinated by what you're about to say.
Yeah. So, it's all about you just focus on what's under your control is really the basic tenet of Stoicism. But there's a quote from Epictetus that really resonates with me. That's something along the lines, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? And that just sinks in me. It's just, that just resonates with me so hard. And so I have that a poster of it written in my, bedroom, and I just look at it and it just resonates with me. And then also it's a good stress reliever. If you just focus on things that you can control, everything else will just work out on its own. It's easier said than done. Obviously it's a practice and philosophy, but
it's an awareness. If you can come to that awareness, imagine if every day, once a day, you took stock and said, well, what do I have control of? What don't I have control of? Oh, I don't have control of that stuff. Great. It'll work itself out. even if you just say that once a day to yourself at the end of the day, like, oh my
Right.
God, could that ever change your mindset?
Right. And so it's just a huge thing. So I can't recommend that enough. And actually, I talk about one of Ryan Holiday's books in my book because it changed me so much. So
That's beautiful. Well, so okay. Well, I'm going to assume that it's this way for you. Every other author I've had either on here or on the Letterman podcast. I also host the Letterman podcast. Every guest I've had on those. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really was taken aback by the stoicism thing.
Sure.
I'm having a moment right now. What are the books from that you would recommend? What's the first one you would recommend, if you wouldn't mind?
Obstacle is the Way. It's definitely, you have to read Obstacle is the Way. Stillness is the Key. And then he's doing a series on
the titles.
Yeah. And then, he's doing a series on the 4 Stoic virtues. And so I don't want to get all about wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. And so I recommend anything he writes. So, but Obstacle is the Way is the one that really resonated with me. All of it. And I cannot, once you write something, I cannot put it down. And so I highly recommend, Ryan Holiday and his,
You've given me a gift. Now to go back, whenever I've had an author on either one of my podcasts, it's always better to buy the book direct from them rather than Amazon. Is that the same situation here?
No, you can buy from Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And to be honest with you, I'm not doing it for like the money. I just, as long as it gets into your hands, it's okay with me. So I don't have it set up for directly from me. I just get it from Amazon, get it from Barnes and Noble, wherever you can.
What happens when the demand starts? Do you have copies? Like, I know I kept a bunch of copies.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of copies at my house. Yes, for sure.
Because we want one, please. I want
more
to
than
sign
happy.
one, and I'll purchase it.
No,
but I want it signed.
You got it.
I want it signed, and I'm really excited about it. Wandering Spark.
Yep.
On Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you like to buy your books. Is there anything else that we've done? I could go hours and hours and hours here, and I don't want to cut anything short. I'm good on time, so just so you know.
Sure, me too.
Is there any other watershed moments or tentpole parts of the book that we want to talk about before we call it here?
Sure, just 2 things real quick, if you don't mind. And I have time.
You don't even have to be real quick, man. No problem at all.
So after New York City, I moved back to Ohio because that's where my family and friends are, what have you.
Yeah. Yep.
And by this time, I was really into running. And so I knew that I wanted to, hang out with the people that ran. And so I kind of joined this running club and started hanging out with these kids who did these ultra races. And I kind of just, really bonded with them. And some of them have a similar story to me, and just hung out with them every day. And so I was like, oh, this is my tribe. This is my tribe. But something still wasn't sitting right with me. I wanted more. And so what I decided to do, I should back up here. So when I moved back to Ohio, I thought about my mentor, David. And I was like, you know what? He's no smart. Not that I think I was like, he's no smarter than me. He started a company. Why can't I do that? And so what I did, I started a similar company to what I was doing with him. And it kind of just took off on its own and kind of blew up. And so it was just an amazing thing. Another thing that I got from him. And so I can't thank him enough.
Entrepreneurship, flat out entrepreneurship.
Yes. And
that's the most incredible gift that somebody could give you from a monetary and a mindset through vocation standpoint.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so it gave me the freedom to work wherever I wanted. And so when I came back home, I was really into, running out, ultra running. So what I decided to do is I bought a conversion van and I went out west and just, bummed around for like 6 months out west, running around doing this, meeting people. And I soon realized, I met some great people. I was like, but everything that I was looking for, I was just kind of running away. It was back home with the friends I met, like running there. There's like, they were my tribe, and everything I was looking for was inside of me. So I moved back home, and then that's when I started writing the book. And remember, at this time, I didn't realize about like my stepfather. Like I knew he was a jerk.
Yeah, of course we got to come back to that. We got to close that. Of course we have to.
I knew he was a jerk, right? Yeah, of course. I knew he was a jerk, but I didn't realize, the abuse and things like that. I never thought I was like a kid who was abused. I would have never said that before I started writing this book. You know what I mean? And so I started writing about, I was like, oh, I was writing about what we talked about. I was writing about my adventures in high school, in college, in law school. And I was like, well,
there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit that wasn't about the abuse in this book.
Exactly.
And
I was like, well, maybe I should start at the beginning. And then I was like, well, what is my first memory? And that's
my God.
And then my first memory was my stepfather, and then that's when it all happened. And I was like, holy shit. And then that's when I was like, oh my God. And so that's when I wrote all that out. And then I was like, you know what? Like, this is like something real. And so I wrote the book. I shared it with my friends, and like, they were all behind me. I knew they were like my real friends. And I was like, this is my tribe. This is true. And so I really, that's when I started like working on myself. I was running, I went into therapy. I started, had the right friends. I was, started reading the right books and journaling and, doing everything you're supposed to be doing. And that's what all happened. So, and here we are today. And so the book's out. And so that's really my story. And that's where we're at.
There is the one other thing. So is there anything else to say about Mom's post reaction?
No. So
because you rewrote it, you rewrote stuff, and we're back to the whole, you releasing, the director's cut of this thing that has that. And that must change the arc of the story. I mean, it's a dramatic story that goes in all sorts of different directions. And it's and I say dramatic in such a beautiful way. The life lessons from it. It could be a personal development book. It is a personal development book,
Right.
Yeah, this is I'm
it's hard.
I'm
with
blown
my
away
mom.
by this, but the context must be changed, because that is a huge. Is it a bookend? Was it a natural bookend for the book?
It would have been if she would have said, yes, you're right, and hugged me, and like we walked off into the sunset, but that didn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was sure, somewhat, but again, this is something that's out of my control. I can't change what I can just heal the best I can. You know what I mean? And yes, I want my mom to be happy, and I don't want to cause her any more pain. And I'm sure like putting this stuff out there is maybe causing her pain, but that's not my intention. I'm just trying to shine a light on all this darkness, so I can heal, everybody can heal. And I know and so, yeah, it hurts me, and I want her to be happy, and it's tough, but it can't stop me from like trying to, heal myself and go through this and try to help other people that's been through the same situation and things like that. So that's where we're at.
You have just right there shown the application of stoicism in that reaction to this. And it's an amazing thing when we do one of these shows. These shows are all great and I love them all, but when you are able to pull out so many echoes, it's astounding to me. It really, really is. Where is the best place to get a hold of you, to get the book? Do you have a website for it?
Sure.
How can people reach you?
So my website's kylevrobinson.com, V as in Victor, and I'm Kyle V. Robinson on all social media, on Instagram, Twitter, X, or TikTok.
Are you a
YouTube.
Facebook guy?
Yeah, I am on Facebook, more on like Instagram and TikTok and that a little bit more.
Oh, I'm glad you've been able to make the migration, man. I have had a hard time. I don't know why. I think it's because I like posting so many stories or little paragraphs and things as opposed to pictures. So I haven't moved much past Facebook, but I need to connect with you. I really want to see. I just appreciate your story so much, and yeah, thank you so much for coming on to heCast today. And my goal at the beginning of this was to give you an interview where you told your story, but we go down some rabbit holes that you haven't gone down so far in the promotion.
That's true.
Have we done that today?
1,000%. So I appreciate that, Mike.
Oh, and feel free to use any part of this conversation for anything that you're doing. You are a light in this world, and feel free to take this and we can give you the footage or whatever if you want to use it as promotion. We would be happy to endorse. When you heard about what He Changed It does, and because you reached out to us, you found out about heCast and whatnot, and then you learned about, we talked about what He Changed It's doing. What was your initial reaction to that? And now that we've finished this episode of heCast, is it as congruent as you thought it would be?
No, it was actually really, really enjoyable. So I really liked the way you navigated the conversation. So it was really good. And so the way I found heCast was I was looking for for podcasts to be on, but a lot of them were just like, and this is great, but a lot of them were just like women in therapy or women who needed like focus on women. I was like, I wonder if there's a men's one. And so that's how I found heCast, and I read about it, and I was like, all about mental health and supporting men. So I was all about that, and that's why I reached out.
Well, you certainly have done that, and you are not just a friend of the show, but you're a friend of He Changed It. And when I say we, it's my wife and her team. I'm just the guy that hosts the podcast, but they're going to change the world, and everybody, like, we're a snowball, man, and we're rolling down the hill, and it's starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's some really big things that are happening behind the scenes right now. And as the snowball gets bigger, let's all get bigger together, and let's all form this community.
I would love that. Whatever I can do to help.
That you talk about. Yeah. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah. You will, and we'll get back to you for sure. Okay, so yeah, this is why we do the show. This is the quintessential reason for heCast's existence is to get stories like Kyle's out there, and Wandering Spark is available where fine books are sold. Now, if you haven't downloaded the He Changed It app, what the heck are you waiting for? Go to hechangeit.com and you can see the vision and the mission of the company, and the app download link for whatever your technical persuasion is right there, hechangedit.com. This has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.